So I know Pete's going to start this thing off, but here's a question. Here's a question for everybody that's out there. Is negotiations learned as a script, or is negotiations learned as your personality and through learning to work in different situations and living in curiosity versus judgment? I think that's a big thing it's my Zen thought pattern of negotiations. You have some people and you have certain customs that it doesn't matter, no matter what you do, every time you do the transaction and you put it in the stand and you put it in, or you draw a line and you're good and you're supposed to get it signed. How many people have had that contract and all of a sudden are like, okay, we'll add this to it now, and we'll add this to it. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This doesn't mean we keep going back to the well and every time we push. But again, it's part of some customs. So you've got to really watch where you're working with your client. And that's some of the things that I've run across. And sometimes I just explain, but it's an interesting negotiation thing, especially from the desert. When you have all the water like Ross over there that has all the water in the till, he can say, look, you want some water? You got to do it my way.
That is one way to do it. But I think your answer is it's all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's both. It is personality and learned, and then it is, you learning, from scripts and tactics. And then some clients, if you're negotiating with your clients, some of them just need to be fired. I've had cultural situations where even representing them as sellers, overpriced, unwilling, just terrible. And so you have to just say, hey, this is a good time for us to part ways too. You have to really make that determination if they're that bad, because they can be that bad, whether they're a buyer or a seller. So it's just always a moving target. But sometimes if they're just adding too much and unreasonable,
gotta say
you get no water.
Yep.
There's a great book, and my son gave me the book because he's trying to teach me, and I'm learning. I'm trying. It's called Let Them. And
Mel Robbins.
And I'm just getting into it, but write this book down, everybody. It's called Let Them. And it's a process of sometimes you just got to let people do what they're going to do and not have to deal with it, and say no to letting it do it, or not be attached to the outcome. We all get so personal with it. And especially in this new world of listing agents and buyer's agents, you got to build a rapport with that other agent saying, look, we can both sit over here and draw swords, or we can be the going into, inside the Trojan horse together and then into it and make it work. If one person leaves frowning, that means somebody else when left smiling. But if we all leave a little grimace and a little bit of smile, we're all good. That's an even balance. So Pete, you're in charge of the guruing it today, unless we just started a conversation and started rolling with it. But
no, I like that. I like that. That's a great book. Mel Robbins, Let Them. And I do agree with you, Lurchy. I love when Lurchy brings the gold on a Thursday. I really do. It makes my day, right? He's bringing the gold as usual. Bridget, of course, had great input. I love that. I mean, we're talking about today negotiation tactics. I think it's really important in the market today. And I want everybody to share their best tactics that they're using to get their offers accepted, or to get listings signed, or to get price reductions and things along those lines, or to get people moving. Because I think right now there's a lot of negativity out there and uncertainty, and a lot of people are kind of paralyzed, right? Buyers are paralyzed, sellers are paralyzed by not being unrealistic or being negative or having anxiety. Investors are paralyzed because they don't know which way this is going to go. And we got to get things moving, right? And the market that you have in your mind is the market that you'll create. So I think it's really important to give some tips today to all the people who are on here on how do you separate yourself? How do you make your offer stand out? What do you do to really provide exceptional service and exceptional negotiations during a transaction. It's super important, you guys. There's a lot of little things you can do that doesn't cost you anything that can go a long way to either winning the transaction or not winning the transaction. So let's start with my favorite French woman on the face of the earth, Le Catherine Black. Hey, Catherine, bonjour. So what have you been using lately in negotiating to really make your offers stand out, or to get listings, or how you're getting people to move forward?
So in terms of offers, I kind of do the same thing all the time. Like yesterday, I show a home to a client, called the agent right away while I was in the condo, ask question, make a connection. I happen to know him, which is awesome. And it was day one of the listing. And I basically said, okay, my clients love it. We are going to send you an offer. Today, we were the first one to send it. And basically, it gave me an indication that even though the price was, I believe, let's say $680, the seller felt it was worth $685. So with that information, I told my clients, you really want it, let's go to $685 right away. I asked if that price would make us have the seller accept our offer right away. He say maybe. So, and we did the 3% down, removal. I cannot speak English today. Removing the physical home inspection contingency, the appraisal contingency, 7 days on removing the due diligence contingency, 12 days in loan, 19 closing, and not asking the seller to pay for the warranty. So I'm like super strong. I'm just giving it all. I'm going to what I'm hearing. The listing agent is telling me he will take to win it, and the seller will not wait for other offers to come in and compete with. So that's my first goal, is to win the offer before other offers come in. And it looks like we are going to get it. So that's what I do. I remove the physical home inspection contingency and appraisal, and just go strong with a high number if my clients really, really want it. In terms of the listing, how do I negotiate the listings? I wish sometime I could negotiate it better, honestly. I really come in and show the testimonial I have, the awesome videos that I do. I have a list. I showed it to you guys last time. I don't have it handy, but every listing that I sell, which I sold them over asking and closed them went into escrow between 4 days and 9 days. I have this list with a picture of it. It looks really cool. And I show that, and I let them know 95% of my listing, I literally will have them in escrow between 4 to 9 days. And you can see every one of them, I went above asking. I explained that in this market, I price them under the comps, and then get lots of people to, come into my open house. I personally put it live on Monday. Don't let anyone look at the property until Thursday, and then Friday, and then open house Saturday, Sunday. And then I have multiple offer by Monday, Tuesday, and then I'm in escrow. And it just works like magic, like 95% of the time, truly. And I show them that, so I'm able to have them like, okay, let's try that to, start lower, which freaked them out. But then I said, guys, you don't have to accept any offer. If we are not getting to a level where you are comfortable, we'll just readapt. So right now I have a home in Rancho Bernardo, which I got 3 offers. I had 130 people come through the open house, like 70 group, amazing. But I only got 3 offers. I thought with that volume, I would get way more. And that, I feel, is because of what's going on, the craziness with the politics and such, and people being, like you said, frozen, Pete. But now I'm working them to where I need to go, which is 1.2. sending multiple counter offer. But what I also did, because I wasn't quite getting as high as I thought I would, I upped the price. And you know what happened? The realtors call me and say, hey, why did you up the price? And then I tell them, well, I'm getting a lot of phone call of realtors who have buyers who cannot quite afford the price of this property where I'm at already with the offers I have. And I don't want to have anybody lose time, you know, so that's why I up the price, because at this point we'll need offer over that new price. So that really works. And now I have realtor calling me back, and then suddenly their clients are more interested when they were like not really sending an offer. It's very bizarre. So that's what I do.
Hey, everybody.
Sorry, I
I
had
just
my
got
mute
here.
on, so I apologize.
Oh, there he
I
is.
started talking and then I was muted. So that's not one way to win a negotiation. Don't be muted, all right? I'm just going to tell you right now, you don't ever want to be muted. I want to go to Lurchy because when I came on, he was on fire. Lurchy, give us some tips on what you're doing to separate yourself from the pack in any type of negotiations, either listing, buyers, investors. Go.
First of all, on the listings that we have, we set out a presentation of the expectations for the agents. It's in the multiple listing. It has guidelines of the terms and everything that we'd like in it. So we don't have to keep repeating it. It's there, so they follow that. I also always ask my sellers, what's your knockdown price? We could sit here and keep stringing people on, or what is your knockdown? Like, boom, done. Contract comes in, we sign it, we go with it. We always keep dates in very tight. I like having dates in very tight. Some agents are uncomfortable with that, and I say that's great. We have the option to slide and move them outwards if we run into an issue. But for now, these are the guidelines in which the seller is looking to play in. So that's how I kind of set up the listings for the process, coach the agents and where it is. Remember, 80% of the agents sold less than 3.6 houses last year. And then also in that process, when I'm in a listing appointment with sellers, I tell them this process and I ask the agents that you're interviewing also what their process is. So what I'm doing is I'm setting the other agent up for a failure, because I know that 80% of them aren't going to have it or don't know it. Because then I also say to them, when you go into, if you were going into battle, who do you want standing in the corner with you when you get that offer? Because remember, in this new market, they got swords drawn. It's like us against them. And remember, 80% of them are 3.6 sales. So do you want me in the corner negotiating with them, because 80% of them don't have an idea what they're doing? They're clueless already. So do you want two people clueless, an agent that's clueless with a buyer and a listing agent that's clueless? Or at least do you want a listing agent that knows what they're doing, working with a clueless agent who's going to get the process done? Those are your choices. I don't have commission Brett sitting here. I don't have to sell another house tomorrow. I'd like to build these things, but knows also, okay, this is a two-way contract that we're having. You're looking to hire me and I'm looking to decide whether I'm not the right fit. And are you okay with at the end of this, if I don't think I am the right fit, I get you the agent that could be the right fit. So I set it up that way and I load it for bear. It's like giving them the questions to ask the agents that I know that they're not going to be able to get. And if you're a newer agent and you don't have those things and you are with EXP, you have somebody that did sponsor you. If they're in their market, use their numbers. I tell everybody that's in my marketplace, use me as a reference saying, look, me and my senior partner, Craig Lurch, have done X amount of sales. It's the edification of that process. Talk about EXP being the #1 in transactions last year in the country. Use those tools that you have. You don't have to say me, talk in we. Remember, EXP or whatever company you're with gives you the opportunity to go from a one feather peacock to a full plume peacock in the size that you want to do. So that's how I negotiate. I try not to beat up, but I set the basis for somebody else's failure. As far as that's how I set up with system. If I have an agent who has a listing and we have a buyer we want to make an offer, I automatically start seeing, one, if they're in my phone, what our last texts have, what we've ever talked about in the past. because I'm going to bring that up again when I call them. Hey, by the way, we showed your property. How have you been? How is your kid? We were in a bidding war the other day with a young lady. She goes, oh my God, Craig, I forgot. You were one of the first people 2.5 years ago. I sent you a picture of Jaden, my son, who was born. And you were just talking to me with my son, who's 11, my second son. I can't believe it's been that long since we did a transaction. And I hope we get, guess what? We won because I took the time about their baby then, which helped me get what I need now. So what I do is a little more coddling and making them feel good about themselves and going that way. So I don't know whether that's how I negotiate. I want to suck people in. I want to make them the winner. And I tell them all the time, our goal is to make everybody happy in the end, but not everybody's going to be happy. Not everybody's going to play that way. But pick who you want in your corner. And that's where we go. And I say it to the buyers and I say it to the other agents. When I drop an agreement of sale, this is not for fun. We will get to the table. We will get it done. It's not like I don't know what we're doing. We will get it to the table because of the experience. And when you show that strength, you will get more transactions. And keep your things tight. Keep all your dates tighter, like Catherine was saying. My buyers, if they're in the process of looking at houses, they're going through the full mortgage process, just like they're going to become a cash buyer. Because if you're in pain points looking at houses, you might well be in pain points sending paperwork to mortgage guys. Because once you get it done, it's off your plate. You're going to be already stressed with home inspections and everything else. Why keep throwing more on your plate? If you can take it off, take it off. That's how I negotiate.
Love it. He's just a peacock, you guys. He's just trying to fly. Let him fly.
It's
all right?
flamingos. Flamingos.
That's
Get
right.
it right.
You were talking about peacocks. I like that. Spread your wings. Let's go to Ross the Boss Stout. He's having another fun day in real estate. He is doing negotiations all the time, I'm sure, on both sides. Ross, what are some of your tips, the best tips for people who are listening to help them with their negotiations?
What's up, guys? Best tips. I'll give you 7 points today that I like to
Lucky
live
number
by.
7. Love it.
Lucky number 7. What's up? So Pete talked about don't let people get paralysis by analysis. I think that's number 1. People are going to come to you with, first they're going to say, I want to see this house. And then what's the next thing you're going to say? I have a problem with the market. This and that. Whoa, wait, that's a lot of information. Let's get back to your goal. Why are we meeting right now? Let's get back to you trying to reach the goal of purchasing this property. And how are you setting yourself apart from the rest of the craziness by being the disruptor who's buying a home in this market? You're going to get the best price I can negotiate for you. Don't let all the noise give your clients paralysis by analysis. There's too much information out there for anyone to digest fully, and people are going to bite on to what they want to be scared by. And it's our job to diffuse that by directing them to their goals. So no paralysis by analysis. You got to know your market conditions is my second point. I'm in a lot of different markets, and in the desert right now, I'm just like, write an offer. I don't care if it's 1% of list price. Just get your buyer condition to write an offer. Once you put pen to paper and they get beat up and they don't win the property, they're going to be apt to produce a better offer the next time. Or on the flip side, if you're in LA or the Bay Area right now, you're having to go, but seemingly the number's 300 grand over list. Like, how is that a real thing, right? So you got to know your market condition to be able to take your buyer to the top. If you're talking to your buyer in LA and Bay Area about writing a list price offer, you will strike out every single time and get fired because you're promising that list price is a good offer when it is not. If you're in a slower market like the desert, maybe from like what I'm hearing from some other people across the panel, get them to write. Condition your buyers the correct way to be able to succeed in the market that they're trying to transact in. Lurchie was talking about personality tactics, or versus tactics. And I'm not a guy with a huge personality. I kind of live here. And I think that's why people like to work with me, because I don't get excited no matter, like, if I see there's blood in the water, or if we're up against, Mount Everest on a negotiation. Stay even, know your personality. Don't ride the wave of a transaction. If you get too excited or too low, your client's going to follow you, because they've hired you to be their, their consultant, you're their representation. You're the face of how they look in this transaction. So don't be riding this roller coaster. Just be you, but you got to mix your tactics with your personality. If you're a really high energy person, like you can live there, but don't take yourself down off that. You got to stay where you're at and be the same through the whole transaction. Because the moment you look defeated, you've lost. So know your personality versus the tactics you want to use. And then you got to know your USP, right? You have to be very straightforward and consistent with your messaging to your client. And that's going to be based on market. But like say in the desert where you can negotiate on price, I'm living on, we're going to get you the best price on the property. I'm going to save you money on your interest rate, and I'm going to save you money on your closing costs. These are high interest items that I can perform on. And if they sign that buyer broker agreement with me and they talk to my lender, then they can execute these promises. So know your USP, know what you're selling. If you're in the higher end markets or different markets where it's flying off the shelf, you need to create a USP to get people to understand that you are the market expert and you've delivered in these high pressure, high interest situations if you're a seller agent or a buyer agent. So just know your USP and stick to that strict messaging. Build rapport with agents in your market. I know that when I call and I have a buyer, any listing agent in the desert, they're like, oh, I'm so glad you called. Yeah, show it. Like, when do you want to see? When can you get them in? Be that person where when your name pops up on their phone, they're excited. They know that you have a high quality client or you have a high quality listing that you're ready to transact with in the market. And how do you build that rapport? Go to events. Be really engaging with the agents in their showings. Call them, let them know what's coming down the pike or what you have coming soon. Be active. Your agents, like when we're talking about these negotiations, I don't like to view it like I'm like this with them. I want to be like this. You know what I mean? We want to walk away both winning, because that's how transactions work. Yeah, you can get beat up and feel bad for your client, but at the same time, like they have the right to say no, and it's your job to hey, market's telling you, you need to say yes. Like you have to be able to be in that position where you're working with the other agent, because if you are going to get in a sword fight with them in a deal, then you're going to die by the sword most likely, because in today's market conditions, not a lot of people have to transact. So build a rapport with other agents. And then simple thing, deliver a really clean offer. So you have the seller. This is something so simple. Put the seller's name on the seller line if you're writing a buyer offer. Like do the extra little work. Don't check about the government mandatory repairs when you're doing a conventional loan or a cash finance, or no cash deal. Don't do simple things on an offer that make a veteran agent go, huh, this person has no idea what they're doing. You produce a clean offer, they're going to be more apt to work with you because they think you can take them to the closing table. And then the last thing I want to say is don't make decisions for your clients. You are not the decision maker. Let them decide. If they're saying yes and you're like, oh, this isn't the house for you, you're in no position to be their consultant because you're not making deals. It's their decision. It's not ours. We're delivering information and high level information for them to make decisions on. We're here to make a deal happen for them because they contacted us to purchase real estate, not to have we don't need to be a yes man, but we definitely don't need to be this neighborhood sucks, like maybe that's what they can afford. Our opinion is irrelevant. I remember I walked into a house one time and I thought the wallpaper was hideous. It was grandma's wallpaper now. And they were like, I love it. It makes me feel like home. You don't know what their experiences are. So keep your opinions to yourself, deliver information about the deal because the client is the one making the decision, not you. So those are my 7 points. I know I got long-winded. Sorry about that. But when you're in negotiations, don't get in the way. Be the conduit to make it happen. That's the best thing you can do for yourself and your clients.
Love it. I think those were a lot of great points. Hopefully everybody took those down. If not, Ross, try to bullet them in the chat. But you know, details matter, you guys. And if you're going to be a pro all the way through, and how you represent yourself. It's called being a co-broker for a reason, right? You're a cooperating broker. You're supposed to be cooperating with the other side to bring the sides together. I like that don't criticize the house. You never know who's going to like what, right? Do not talk yourself out of deals. Keep your mouth shut and just ask questions and watch their eyes and watch their reactions, right? That's why you have, my parents used to always say, that's why you have 2 eyes and 2 ears and 1 mouth. If you were supposed to talk all the time, you would have 2 or 3 mouths and 1 eye and 1 ear. So listen, watch, and don't talk. So I think that's great. You know, the next person we're going to go to, who looked like a college professor, but he's not bragging, he's just applying for a job, is Matty Battiata. I know he has all types of tactics when it comes to negotiating. Matt, give us a few tips on how you're separating yourself from the pack on offers for negotiations.
Well, I think a really important thing, I don't know if anyone's mentioned it, but when you submit an offer on somebody's listing, you really, like Lurchy said, a lot of these agents, even if they have a listing, they're not super experienced and they don't do the best job in the world. And so you can't trust them to be the conduit to the sellers, right? So when you submit an offer, I always have, first of all, I have my clients always write a letter to the sellers, which goes a really long way. I've gotten many, many offers accepted where the listing agent said, you know what, you were not the highest offer, but they took your offer because of that letter. And sometimes I literally write the letter for the buyers because I know what should be in there to that's going to sway the sellers, right? So you're still selling, the house is being sold between a buyer and a seller. They're human beings, they have emotions, etc. And so there are things that you can put in a letter to a seller that will have, that will appeal to their emotions and make a difference. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've heard that from a listing agent. By the way, you were not the highest offer, but the seller really likes your buyers and wanted your buyers to get the house. So that's really important. When you submit that offer, I always want to summarize the offer. I want to justify the price if we're coming in at a low price. And I always tell the listing agent, and which most of them are going to do anyway, but I tell them, forward this to your sellers so that they understand why we're offering what we're offering. It's one thing to come in with a low offer. It's another thing to say, this is why we're offering. These are the comps that we are looking at. And that's why we're offering what we're offering. We love the house. That's why we're making the offer. We love what you've done with it, et cetera. But we're offering this price because these are the comps that we're looking at. And we don't think it's going to appraise any higher than this. And those are all really important things. And you cannot trust that agent to communicate that to the seller, right? And that's why you'll get ridiculous counter offers sometimes when you make an offer. And it's like, the same thing goes, and David Lawson's been on here talking about it. You need to talk to that listing agent before you submit the offer about why you're asking for a concession of X% and what's going to happen if they do not pay out that concession. What you're going to have to do, you're going to have to lower your offer, et cetera. And really, really explain that. And I like to explain that also in writing in the email, because again, you cannot trust that agent to have that conversation with the seller. So I think that's really, really important, because the reality is once you get a counter offer and they are coming back to you saying, well, we're going to pay you 2% or something, you're kind of stuck now. You want to help your clients get the deal. Yes, you can counter it, but it's much, much better to have that conversation and put it in writing when you make that offer and tell the listing agent, look, just forward this to your sellers. And then they understand what's going to happen if they come back at a 2% concession. It's also, so justify the price, talk about the concession, and then also highlight what are the really attractive aspects to your offer. Because again, some of these listing agents will just forward that to the sellers. They don't really have a conversation. The sellers don't realize that, you're removing the loan contingency in 7 days. You're removing all your inspection contingencies in 7 days. You're going to get to full CR. All the positive, you're giving them a free rent back. You've got to spell it out. So that's as far as getting offers accepted. When it comes to listings, negotiating, getting a listing, your listing appointment starts before you walk in the door. All the information you send to them ahead of time. So your pre-listing packet, you want to have testimonials in there. You want to highlight your experience and all the transactions you've done. And if you haven't done a lot of transactions, you can use the transactions of your team, or you can use, like Craig said, you can talk about EXP being #1 in transactions in 2024. You should not have to go into a listing appointment and sit there, like we were taught early on years ago, like where you're sitting there overcoming objection after objection after objection. It's, like a car salesman. You should walk in there and they should be pre-sold. So, I years ago spent a lot of money having a video done. And this was so long ago that it was literally on a VCR tape. And
VHS,
I would,
VHS.
yeah, VHS. Yeah. So I would
Right.
have that, I'd have that delivered out to their house beforehand. And I would tell them, it'll save us so much time. Just take a few minutes and watch this video before I get there. And when I would because they would do all the selling for me. And then if I would get there and I'd say, hey, the first thing I would say is, you guys get a chance to watch that video? And if they said, we just been so busy, we didn't, I would literally say, you know what? I see it right there on the coffee table. Honestly, I'm going to go out to my car and make a few calls, pop it in and watch it, because I didn't want to have to sit there and sell them. Right. So your negotiations with the seller, the value that you build should be done before you walk in the door. And then when you walk in, and it doesn't have to be a video, it can just be a really, really good pre-listing packet. And then you don't have to do as much selling. You don't have to do as much negotiating when you're there. So I know there's a lot of people here to talk, so I'll wrap it up with that.
Nice, Matty. I like that. And, the other thing too, guys, is you have to have an understanding of what they're looking to achieve, right? We all make that assumption when sellers call us that we're assuming they want to sell for a certain reason. You have to find out what's important to them. Same with your buyers too. That's really an important point. Ask that question right off the bat. What's the most important thing to you? And find out and keep digging. All right. Let's go with the Cam. He's got his sunscreen on. He's down in Florida. It's getting hot. Things are heating up. Cam, what are you doing and we're going to speed this up a little bit because we have a lot of people, but what are you doing to separate yourself when it comes to negotiations so that your clients really stand out, or that your seller's in the best position to win?
Yeah, great question. Good morning, everyone. And I'm going to be quick because there's quite a few people that want to share their wisdom today. And a few of the things that I went over earlier. Catherine, raising the price is genius. That is so smart. I love that. And that's real negotiation, you guys. That's tricks. That's gold nuggets. But for negotiating, and I'm going to be quick, like I said, but there's really 3 parts of it, right? You have the skill, which can be learned. That's what you're doing today. You have your experience, which is going to be gained by doing it and just, going through the process, winning sometimes, losing sometimes, seeing how it works. And then the last one is going to be intent. Intent is the only choice you have when it comes into negotiations. And when you're wanting to put yourself as the agent, your intent needs to be selfless. You are not the important person here, okay? And that kind of brings me on to the next part there, is that the cool part about this business is you're able to do negotiations with multiple people. You have your client or your prospect, then your client, and then also with the other person's client. But remember, that's never with the other agent. You're never negotiating directly with the other agent. So that is really important when you're going into presenting an offer or working with another agent. When they present an offer, you need to work together. You guys are on the same team. One of the things that nobody's brought up, but it's really important, is that if you are going to be presenting an offer, one of my favorite things to do is reach out to that agent and ask them what's important to them. What is really important to your clients that, if it would work for our clients, I would love to include that in our offer. Remember, you guys, first impressions matter. And when you schedule a showing, when you reach out to an agent, every single thing you do with these agents, good agents, bad agents, everywhere in between, that first interaction is so important that you need to make sure that you're professional. You need to make sure that you're standing out as you're doing the best you can. That way they want to work with you. Here where we are at, make sure to include the agent. Obviously, you always want to ask them questions. When you do submit an offer and you have requests for concessions or price or whatever it may be, make sure that you have a reason, right? You need to give the agent ammo so that they can go back to their client and do the negotiations. This has been talked about a few times, but you know, if you don't tell the agent the best way to go present it to their client, most likely they're not going to present it in the best way possible. As it's been spoken, there's agents of all skill levels. And when you can clearly outline what you're asking for, if it's concessions like Matt was saying, you know, you can say, hey, they need to have this concession or for, you know, professional fees. If your client isn't willing to do this price with that concession, please have them raise the price. That's as clear as it can be, right, you guys? And guess what? When they come back with a $3,000 higher price, your client's not going to lose the deal over $3,000 and everybody's happy. And that is the key to negotiations, is being able to clearly explain what you want in a friendly way, that you're working together so that both parties can actually leave the deal happy, which happens all the time. My last part is if you're in a market like ours is, so here in Southwest Florida, we're about 40% down from the peak here 2.5 years ago. So our market, it's you make an offer. Ross was saying, make an offer. We're just making an offer, praying that we get something to see. So you can ask for $100,000, $150,000 off on a $700,000 home, you guys. We just closed on one that we got $150,000 off on a $700,000 home. That's our market. You know what? Some people want to sell it, some people don't. What I always tell my clients, though, when it comes to presenting those offers that are lower, it's like, don't worry if they say no. It's okay. There's hundreds and hundreds of homes we can look at. We're okay to walk away. With that said, when it comes time and you're just, you know, right at the nitty gritty, this is my biggest piece of advice for all of you guys. When it comes time to put that offer together and you're only 5,000, 10,000, maybe you're 50,000 on a $2 million deal, right? And it's close. What I always like to ask my client when they're, you know, the common question is, hey, you know, what would you do? I say, this is my go-to, you guys. Well, would you be upset tomorrow if you woke up and we didn't get this over 10 grand? And then be quiet. And 9 times out of 10, they'll say, yeah, that wouldn't make any sense. We're at 300, 500, 700, $2 million. It makes no sense to lose this over $5,000 or $10,000. And you go, I agree with you. Let's just do the right thing. Give them that extra $5,000, tie it up today and get moving. And they're like, that's a good idea. That's the best thing to do. So those are my big tips. If you ever guys have any questions about negotiating, I'm always here. Just add me on Facebook. I love to talk about negotiation because it's so important for agents. Fight for what you're worth, ask for more, and then start from there, especially in our markets.
Love it. Great tips. Let's go to Bridget Young, the queen of commercial. I'm sure she's in negotiations all the time and it's cut and dry. So tell us some of your tips.
I am. So the first thing I do, I go into every conversation, I make friends with that other agent. I am friendly. I make friends. I immediately control the conversation. And I always tell them, listen, I have control of my buyer's expectations. So when and it's really true. If you don't make that up, tell them you've got a great relationship with your buyer and they trust you. You want to not only sell yourself and your skills, but you want to sell your buyers, you know, give them some background, and tell them, you know, that you have control of them, and then really do set expectations with your buyers. So we got a lot of buyers falling out of markets here in San Diego. Like they'll make an offer and they'll back out. Number one, set expectations with your buyers. You're not buying a new house because typically they're not. A seller doesn't even have to respond to a request for repairs. It is written in a contract. All property is sold as is. Now, we're going to get an inspection. We're going to submit the repairs. You're going to look for safety issues, something leaking. They're not building you a new house. And you also want to not only really explain that to your buyers, you want to tell that to the listing agent that you have control and that you're going to control the narrative at that key point in that request for repairs inspection. Always control and be a peacemaker in the situation. I just did $165,000 appraisal cut on a flip and I didn't even panic. I was like, I'll find a path forward, and I did. So to that point right now, again, this market, buyers are finicky. They're going in, they're coming out. You better partner with a lender that can also control the narrative. They better know how to sell. They better know how to tell a buyer, listen, you give yourself a raise. When you buy this house, first-time home buyer, you can collect more, write more on your W-9. what is that called? You can do a higher deduction on your W-9. You're going to have interest tax write-off, and you can always refinance. Rates are coming down. They're supposed to come down. So give them the key points on the benefits of home ownership. Not only are you, building equity, even if the market dips, it always comes back. When in history are the prices ever loyal? Even if it dips, you can afford the payment. It always goes up higher. So really, if you should know that, but also have a lender that can walk them through those steps. That's really key. The conversations, I make the agents want to work with me. In regards to what Matt says on the letters, you do not know who you're working with. I always write a letter outlining my deal points and tell them, just forward this, especially if it's low. But in any case, but if it's low too, I always say, call the agent, say, don't panic. You're going to tell your seller that every offer is a good offer. Do not let them be offended because now we have someone interested in the property, and that's a good thing. Then you're going to tell them your job is to get that buyer as high as you can, because a lot of buyers just want to start low. I just wrote low one yesterday, and the agents are super excited, and they're still like, we want to work with you. But I called them. I said, my client starts low. Give your seller this information. He always performs. I'll get him up to the right price. We'll bring the deal together, but he starts low, and that's just his nature. And even if it's your first time working with him, tell him that. Just if they're doing a low offer, just explain that you're going to work to get your buyer up, and we're going to bring the deal together. So you are a team. When you're working with the other agent, absolutely bring peace to the situation and focus on a path forward. And on the seller side, like with requests for repairs, and I'm bringing that up because that's where deals fall apart. And then so many other people have touched on so many other points. On requests for repairs, set your seller's expectations. They're going to get an inspection. They're going to put a request for repairs. Expect to, if something's broken, leaking, safety, you're going to fix it. Your carpet's crappy, you're going to do a credit. Set expectations out of the gate. Do not let your sellers overprice right now. I'm working on one that wants to price about 30 grand before we should. And I'm telling her, no, you are going to look terrible. You're not going to have to do a price reduction. Your house isn't as nice as that house that just went pending at 925. You're not going to set it above that price. You need to take my advice on this. So you need to be strong, direct, friendly, but say this is for your own good. You don't want it to sit there, then do a price reduction in this market, because buyers are going in and out of escrow. Every agent I'm talking to, I'm seeing houses go pending and come back out. Just talked to someone last night. 3 deals just went into escrow and 3 deals fell back out. So it's really specific to this market. Not only vet your agent, like if you're representing the seller, vet your agent. How much do they love the house? How motivated are they? Call their lender. Make sure their numbers are good, and really try to make sure you're not getting in bed with a buyer that is fickle. They can cancel for any reason, but try to really get down that rabbit hole and make sure they really are motivated and really do love the house. And then to what Matt says, so you're submitting those letters on the buyer side, you're listing, you're really making sure, just go as far as you can on seeing if that buyer really wants that house, especially if you have multiple offers. And on top of the letter, controlling the narrative and telling them your whys softly, gently with data. A lot of times what I've done is have the buyers make a video to the sellers on how much they love the property. And it's really helpful. And if they could do it on site of the property and say, we love this, if you're in a multiple offer situation, they can really feel that buyer's spirit and intent, and it's emotional and it's adorable. So, especially if you're in a multiple offer situation, have that buyer make a video directly to the sellers, how much they love the home, what they love about it, how happy they're going to be there. So it's just another added thing in a tough situation.
Awesome. Those great points. And, I want to touch upon one thing that Bridget said. You can't get to the finish line if you don't start the race, right? So If somebody makes a low offer, especially in these markets during uncertain times, you have to have a conversation with that other agent up front and pre-frame it to them that this is the opening conversation. This is a conversation between the buyer and seller to see if we can meet at a mutual point. That's the key, you guys. Don't get hard-nosed. Don't say, oh, we're not going to counter that. If you don't counter, you never know where it's going to go. You always, always, always counter. So what I say to my sellers all the time, because they get very emotional, is I'll say, do you want to accept the offer? Or do you want to counter the offer? That's it. There's no other alternative. Do you want to accept it or do you want to counter it? Even if they counter at full price, that's okay. It's not for me to tell them that, right? That's the key. That it comes down to negotiation. You have to be really sophisticated and you can't take things personally. It's not a battle between you and the other agent. Everybody gets very emotional. If they get too emotional, say, listen, I think it's getting a little emotional. Let's take a break. We'll circle back later on. In the meantime, if it sells, it sells. You know, that's all you have to say. And you have to have those same conversations with your buyer. All right, let's go down to Sunshine State. The Sunshine person herself, Karina. Karina, give us some tips on how you're doing negotiations down in Sunshine State.
I'm doing it Jersey style in Florida. No, I'm kidding. So, just, you know, little girl strength there. But honestly, so there's been so many great points. I want to add on to some of those that were already on my topic that I wanted to talk about. When you have a buyer, we're going from house to house, trying to find the right house. You find the right house, they want to put the offer in. Before I ever write the contract, I have several reasons why I want to talk to the listing agent. One, I need to know that they're human because sometimes I can't even talk to them to get into the listing, right? They all hide behind showing time. And so I have them all come to me to get my showings to my listings because I want to open up the dialogue immediately, right? But if I'm showing with the buyer, I'm calling the listing agent to find out, are they from Brevard County, Florida? No, I want to know where they're at. Part of the negotiation is also understanding who the agent is and how they work. Because if that agent tells me, no, I didn't grow up here, I'm like, no, I didn't either. I grew up in Jersey. Where'd you grow up? Right? Have that conversation. Oh, I find out that they're from Brazil. Well, I know they like to negotiate, right? And then I find out that their client is from another country that actually loves to negotiate at least 100 times, right? You need to know what you're walking into so you're prepared for your battle, because this is my battle and I love it and I'm going to win every time, right? But I'm doing my research first in a very easy, friendly way and getting to have an opportunity to understand what's happening. So I can go back to my client who happens to be just a normal white person that grew up in America. And there's only 3 things people negotiate in this country typically. If you've born and raised here, your cars, your houses, and you'll take someone out for 25 cents on that yard sale shit that you're selling on your driveway, right? So that's what the normal person is accustomed to. Saturn cars, you're old enough and you were past, 12 in the 90s, Saturns were a big hit because nobody likes to negotiate cars. They're sick over it, right? So you have to think, like, we're trained assassin realtors and salespeople. We know the first person to speak loses, all this nonsense. Most of our buyers and sellers hate negotiating. They hate it. They feel sick. They're unhappy. It's a very miserable experience for them in their mind, right? It doesn't have to be. It can be a lot of fun if you get them involved in it. So now I understand what's happening with the other side. So I go back to I asked the seller, at the listing agent at that time, what is it, the exact terms your seller would love to see on the contract? I'd like to know. And I'm writing it all down. I'm going back to my buyers and I'm going to say, hey, I was able to extrapolate this information from the listing agent. And so I don't think there's a problem with any of the things that are going to go into the contract because everything in that contract is a negotiable, right? Everything. We typically only want to stay within the certain lines, but there's other things you can negotiate within that contract to make it a win-win. And by the way, I bring this point up. A win-win does not mean both sides win. I don't know if you understand this. If you look up the true definition of a win-win, somebody has to concede to the other one to make it right. If you've ever been in a relationship or you've ever been married or you have children, you know that is the darn truth, right? So you have to explain that to your clients when you're going into this process. So to wrap it up on that point of it is now we're able to go offer maybe everything but the price point or a closing date that's going to work for my buyers and the sellers. And we have less that we have to go back and forth with instead of the whole contract, right? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. However, NAR came out with, and this is really important, back in, I think it was like 2018-ish, maybe it was 2016, they came out with this thing that got sent out to all of us at one point, and their biggest complaint NAR was getting at the time was that the consumers felt that the agents did not negotiate on their behalf. Both buyers and sellers felt that way. About a month later, I get this email. So I don't know if there's a little collusion between NAR and this other company, but I got this email saying, we have this course, it's a Harvard course, and you can become a certified negotiation expert. Well, I came into real estate in 2013 after selling big packages of software sales to the Fortune 250. So I didn't understand this alphabet soup these realtors have: ABC, LMNOP, GRI. No other industry has all these letters after their name. So I was never interested in getting any of those until I saw this one. And it's called an MCNE. If you've not heard of it, I highly recommend you go look it up. It's Master Certified Negotiation Expert. I will tell you, I have won every listing I've ever been on. I'm a really good listing agent. I've won every buyer that I've ever wanted to go work with because I listen to them, but I also explain to them I'm a master negotiator. My kids grew up calling me the family negotiator, right? They understand that there's certain things that was non-negotiable with mom. And my clients realize that too, like overpricing their house is a non-negotiable with me. We're not going to do it. I'm not here to look pretty on a sign. I'm here to close your house, not sell it, but close it, right? We're here as closing agents, not showing agents, closing agents. It's a mindset. It's all negotiations. However, that MCNE, I put it on everything that I have. I write underneath it, Master Certified Negotiation Expert. I make sure the sellers and the buyers understand that when we first meet, and they want someone to take that heavy lifting because they feel like they're going to go throw up in a paper sack when you say the word negotiation to them. So get to know the other side. If you're on the listing side, I will tell you, Matt, I do the videos, or Catherine, but who was it? Bridget, I do the videos. Even for myself, when I'm trying to buy a property, I have my clients do videos. And Matt, if you showed up on one of my properties and sent me a letter, I'd be like, thanks very much. I'm not showing that to my seller. I want them to, if I have a multiple situation, to look at the numbers that's going to make sense for them first. Then if they get tied up in a couple, then I'll show Matt's letter. But I do the letters too. But I'm probably one of the few that hold it back until I don't want them to be emotionally involved, because once the emotion gets in, nobody's thinking straight, right? Whether it's a hot-headed other side or two people are hot-headed, I don't want the emotion in there. I want them to make that decision. So go check out MCNE, use it on your marketing, get the whole certification so you can leverage it. It has won me a lot of business, even in commercial, when I'm in commercial. And I have been able to win big deals for $1,000 off my deals.
Awesome. Great tips. Hey, DJ, we got 5 minutes left. Give me your top tips on negotiations, what you're using down there in Georgia.
Hey, I don't know if everybody can hear me. My service sucks right now. So I'd say the biggest thing is, and I'm quite sure everybody already, does half of these things, and most of the things people said is pretty much what I do every single day. But I would say my top tip is I don't just send in like an offer. I always call first. I always try to create some type of relationship with the other agent. And I think that's kind of has helped me out a lot. And I never just send an offer. I always talk through the offer with the other agent on the phone, because I want to kind of see what type of, I guess, like restrictions that the seller's going to have. I want to kind of see what type of reservation that other agent's going to have based on the things that I'm going to ask them on the phone. So I kind of use half of that stuff on the phone call to put in an offer to figure out what I need to offer. And then based on how their answers and all the responses that they're going to give me, that's what I kind of formulate the offer in. But the first thing that I do is I try to create that relationship, try to tell them how awesome their house is. And, I just try to boost that other agent up to where they feel like that that other agent is the top agent in the area. Like, I'm so excited to be able to have the opportunity to work with you, even though that I may sell more, it doesn't matter if, and every time that I make them feel great, then they kind of open up a little bit more and they kind of tell you a little bit more than what they actually are supposed to tell you. And then that's kind of how I can get houses under asking price. How I just put a property under contract with $30,000 in closing costs. And it was all because I knew that the seller had a sell and they shouldn't have told me any of that information because I was going to send them a $20,000 over asking price. But that's like the biggest thing that I do when I'm working on the buyer side. And then I saw a bunch of great things that a lot of people were saying. And I think that all that stuff helps. The other thing that I do is that I like on the other deal, house was listed at 1.4. I got it for 1.22. And all I did was I sent them a great offer. It was strong, but I dropped off a bottle of Dom Perignon on the seller's front porch after I showed the house. I spent about $200 on it, but it was a multiple offer and I knew I was going to come in under asking price. So I literally just dropped the bottle off and I didn't say anything. And I wrote an email, and in my email, I took a picture of me dropping it off at the front porch. And just basically sent an email like, hey, I really hope your seller enjoys this. We love the house, and this was a gift from us over to you just for giving us the opportunity to actually show like the house. So I just try to do like creative stuff in a way. I don't really write stuff down. I don't have a buyer, sign it or anything like that. I try to do something creative because I'm more cautious in terms of like the fair housing. A lot of agents will do some crazy stuff. So I try to do gifts in a way instead of write everything up. And I always try to have that first call. So every agent on my team, I train them to where I don't want you to talk about an offer or anything. I want you to talk about the agent and get to know that agent first. Then they'll give you everything you need to know to actually write that offer.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Compliment, kindness. If you compliment people and you feed to their ego, because we know that most agents don't have any egos, right? But if you feed to their ego, they're going to give you insight. I've asked what's really important to your sellers. What are the motivating factors that really connects with them? What are their connections, right? And I would always look on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram prior to writing the offer, see if they belong to any type of charitable organization, and write right in there that you will give a portion of your professional fee to that charitable organization in their honor upon closing. That's a really nice kind of heartstrings touch to it that a lot of people don't do. That means a lot to people, especially if it's an estate or something else. So if they belong to the American Heart Association, you don't need to give a specified amount. You could give any amount in their honor. They send them a nice letter saying, hey, a donation has been made on your behalf for this. And that's really another cool way to do it. You can use escalation clauses and so forth too. And escalation clauses, you have to explain before sending them over, saying that you will pay above and beyond what the highest offer you can show me in writing is, and up to this point. And they do work, but the seller has to give the listing agent permission to show you other people's offers. And you don't have to get the whole thing. You just have to get the front page. And that's another key thing to do. Brian Yarber, take us home. We got around a minute and a half left, buddy. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. So I'll just share one thing because I agree with everything, right? Everything I've heard, I agree with, or I can adapt to. The one thing that I would like to convey to you is that my role as the agent for whether it's my buyer, my seller, I don't call him my buyer, I don't call him my seller, but that's how we identify who we're talking to. So for any buyer, any seller, my first initial contact with them is I really need to learn their outcome, because if I can attach myself to the outcome of the client, what I like to convey to them is, listen, I'm not here to negotiate with you. I'm here to negotiate for you. And when they realize that, sometimes in the very beginning, in my establishing of the relationship with the other agent, whether I'm the listing agent or the buyer's agent, I actually blind copy my own client on the initial conversations so they can see how clear cooperation and transparent I am with the other side. When I do that in the very beginning, I establish so much trust that I never have to do it again. But the client gets to see that what they asked actually was conveyed. And if you can convey what they will trust you, and then all you do is you use documents to do the rest of the transaction, because you don't really want to get into conversations with the other agents because it creates too much camaraderie in a way that you begin negotiating, and that's not our job. We should let the contracts negotiate for the outcomes of our clients. And a lot of times I'm just educating the other agent on how to have a really good deal with me, because I don't want to negotiate with them. I want to help them, because we're going to change the ownership of the property, whether it's my sellers changing the ownership, or my client is receiving the new ownership. And when you do that really simple and really smooth, you'll be able to sleep at night. You won't stress. That's it.
Love that. You guys just remember one thing, one last tip. There's no verbal volleyball in real estate. That is not valid. That's lazy. Put pen to paper, say it's real easy. I don't mind writing it up. Let's make the offer and start the conversation. That's it. Because when you start to get people writing, they continue writing, right? And if they don't get the deal, don't be bummed out. Say, listen, that wasn't meant to happen. I have 2 other options for you. Get them back up in the air. Top Gun reference. Get them back out there. Get them back up in the air. Get them moving, right? Don't sit there and stall out because they'll say maybe it's not the right time. No, it is the right time. There's a house out there for you. I have 3 options. Let's go see them. That's it. All right. So just keep it moving and stay positive. People are going to feed off your energy and how you react to things. So stay cool, stay calm, stay positive, and make it happen. Everybody have a great weekend. Go write some offers. Let's negotiate some deals.
See you guys. Have a great weekend.
Bonne semaine, bon week-end. Au revoir.